So what is a personal representative and what are the general powers that a personal representative has? Well, folks, in general, a personal representative is an individual that is appointed by the court to handle the estate of a decedent, a person who passes away. Now, a personal representative derives or comes from terms that we used to know. First of all, if there was a will in the past, then the person that was appointed to handle the estate or was designated inside the will was called an executor. And if it was a female, it was called an executrix. Now, if there was no will in the past, then the estate was said to be administered, and you'd have an administrator of the estate. All of those terms have been combined with the Uniform Probate Code into the term personal representative. Now, a personal representative that is appointed by the court has a high fiduciary responsibility. That means a high level of trust. They have to act in the best interest of the estates and not in their own best interest. And they're held to a very high standard, a very high level. They have to make sure that they comply with the orders of the court and the terms of the will, if there is a will. Now, a personal representative is appointed one of two ways in general. This is generally now. If the family or the devisees through a will or the heirs of his estate are all getting along, then the petitioner, usually the personal representative, the person to be appointed, can approach the court and ask for an informal petition to be allowed by the court. And with that informal petition, there are certain documents that must be produced, a bond being one of them, the original will if there is a will. And there are some other documents that have to name the devisees or the heirs to the estate. With the informal filing, usually a magistrate is appointed and not a judge to the estate. And a lot of the items that must be addressed by the court can be done administratively with no hearings necessary. Now, on the other side, if the family or the devisees or the heirs are not getting along in the estate, then the petitioner, usually, once again, the personal representative, can approach the court and ask for a formal allowance of a petition. If there's a will, then there'll be a formal allowance of the will. And with a formal proceeding, a judge is appointed, and there's usually hearings that will follow, especially if the parties are fighting. This can stretch on for years. So there are one of two ways that a personal representative can be appointed. Now, what are the general powers of a personal representative? Well, first of all, folks, when it comes to the assets of the estate, if there is money, things that are liquid, investments, interests in business, all of these types of items, the title to those items vest in the personal representative at the time of the passing of the individual, at the time of the passing of the decedent. And so what that means is the personal representative can act with respect to those items, the personal property in general, without further authorization from the court. Authorization called a license to sell. The personal representative can act without a license to sell in that instance. Now, when it comes to real estate, this is a different type of an asset. Now, if there is no will, then in order to sell a piece of real estate, a personal representative must seek a license to sell real estate from the court in order to get the authority to do so. If there is a will and there's no authorization to sell real estate inside the will, then once again a license will be necessary. But if there is a power of sale in the will, then the personal representative has the ability at that point to sell real estate without a further license to sell. Now, I have included some links below to talk about some of the videos or to reference some of the videos that I have done in the past that will talk about these issues. So make sure you check those out. But back to the powers of a personal representative. Now, if there is some type of a business interest that the decedent had prior to passing away, whether it's a corporation, a formation of a corporation, or a business venture, the personal representative will step into the shoes of the decedent at that point and handle the affairs of the business until it's either wound up or there are other individuals that are involved in the business that will buy out the estate. Now, with respect to other types of assets like stock, the personal representative, once again, will have the ability to handle those assets, any interest in any other business that the decedent may have had. And the personal representative can also step into the shoes of the decedent and vote in a stockholder vote by proxy or however, in person. Now, when it comes to the payment of debts, the personal representative has a broad range of power to pay off debts, to file tax returns, to pay off any estate taxes that may be due as a result of the value of the estate, to pay off any other debt that may be out there. And the personal representative also will have the ability to borrow money if necessary to make sure that the estate pays off any debt that may be lingering at the time of the decedent's passing. Now, just jumping back to real estate for a second, if there is real estate and the personal representative has the ability to sell the real estate, whether it be through the terms of the will with the power of sale or through a license to sell, the personal representative will have the ability to hire other individuals to manage the asset of the estate, the real estate of the estate. Or if it's money, the personal representative does have the power to engage a professional to handle investments on behalf of the estate. So these are some of the general powers that a personal representative has, and basically how a personal representative is appointed by the court is through what we call the letters of authority. So once a person receives the letters of authority, they have the ability to act on behalf of the estate. And once again, that fiduciary responsibility applies, right? Now, I have included some links below to some of my previous videos that talk about some of these issues. They're short, they're meant to be definitions, just so that you get the points. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel below in the lower right-hand corner. And some of my other videos will be appearing here that will relate to this. There will also be a list of videos that I've shot in the past. Dave Ceruolo, CeruoloLaw.com.